In this video, I'm going to walk you through what's new in IBM Copy Services Manager 6.3.15. 6.3.15 release GAs in end of August of 2025. And this is a quick look of the new features we have here. So you can see there's 7 total. Some of these are our ideas, such RFEs that you can see on the left-hand side. I'll walk through each of these, but you can see that we're implementing to your desires here. All right, the first one I want to talk about is the rename of the suspend command in the migration and Metro Mirror sessions. So migration and Metro Mirror failover failback sessions have the ability to run in what they call global copy mode. So with a start GC H1H2 command, you can set it up so that the replication on the hardware and the DS8000 hardware does it in an asynchronous but not consistent fashion. So global copy is their asynchronous solution, but there is no consistency. It's just moving the data. So one of the primary use cases for that is migration. That's why it's built into the migration session. But there's other use cases out there as well. So you might be running in global copy mode, not needing consistency, just needing to replicate to that remote site. Well, the suspend command today was designed to match the normal suspend in terms of terminology. And as such, it was designed to make it so that we ensure there's a consistent copy of the data at the remote site. So as I've just mentioned, global copy is inconsistent, but with the suspend command, you can actually pause the replication and suspend it consistently. Now with the stop command, stop is available too. Stop does it inconsistently, so it just pauses all the individual pairs, doesn't worry about consistency. But the suspend was always designed for consistency. And the way it does this is it drives all the pairs first to Metro Mirror mode, so that is the synchronous copy of the solution. And then once all those Metro Mirror pairs, or what previously global copy pairs, once all the pairs go from that global copy state to a fully duplex state or prepared state in CSM terms, CSM will automatically do a freeze and thaw to get consistency. So in a migration kind of case, you might shut down your applications, and then issue the suspend command, because what that's going to do is it'll drive everything to Metro Mirror. It'll make sure that all the I/O happens and gets written to the remote site, because once they're all duplex, then it'll freeze and things are consistent. You know, all the data made it to the remote site. The issue that we hit was, and tied to this idea, was that the command itself is dangerous because it has application impact. So just simply moving these pairs to Metro Mirror mode, if we're across distance, could lead to application impact because of the longer distance, Metro Mirror plus the freeze and thaw. And so it wasn't quite evident in the command itself that the process was going to occur. Now we do produce a warning prompt, a very bright yellow warning prompt that says, hey, we're about to drive this to the Metro Mirror and do consistent suspend. Are you sure you want to do it? But in some cases, you might be cascaded this solution, you're doing other stuff, so it's not a direct source of this session, or the global copy pair isn't a direct host attached volume, but it may push that application I/O downstream, and you might not think about it. And so what we did to try to address this is rename it. So we renamed the suspend command while running in global copy mode only to move to Metro Mirror and suspend consistently. So it's a long title, but hopefully the idea is that it's going to get across the point that these pairs will go to Metro Mirror mode and do the suspend, and then that plus the warning prompt hopefully will be enough to help mitigate some of the issues where you might have clicked the suspend thinking there's not going to be any impact, and there ended up being an impact. So with that said, the name will now show in the GUI and the CLI, etc., as move to Metro Mirror and suspend consistently. However, if you have automation, so any scheduled task or external scripts calling CSM to do the suspend while in global copy mode, don't worry, those will still work. The way we do our rename is will still allow the old command, so we won't break any automation that you have today. But we do recommend that you go in and change that to the new command name when it's feasible and possible. just so there's avoid confusion going forward. But hopefully this addresses the idea. I know the idea itself had a different way to do it. Maybe enabling a property that allows you to only show that command when that property is set. But I'm hoping that this is less work on you, the user, to have to go through the steps, and gets to where this we prevent some of this potential for application impact that might occur if you accidentally click the command. All right, the next idea I want to go through is a dual control related. So in a previous release, I'll take a step back. Even further back, we never allowed in CSM for customers to, through the GUI, remove sessions that are considered active. So if they're in a normal state or a prepared state or even a preparing state, we never showed you the remove session option. Well, there were some reasons in like 2 or 3 releases back where I think it was 2 releases back, we finally added that command to the GUI, and that is we needed a way in some scenarios for customers to be able to remove the brains of the session from CSM so that they could maybe add it to another session, another server somewhere, or maybe take it over by GDPS or some other external scripts. And we didn't want to break any of the existing like global mirror replication setter, right? So you could do a remove copy sets with the keep on hardware option, and that would keep the global copy pairs, but it also broke down the global mirror hardware's consistency group formation, and then that's not ideal in some cases. So by doing a remove session on an active session, the cases like global mirror will stay active, will stay forming consistency groups, and then you can pull it into another CSM session on a different server or whatever you want to do. So when we did this, we hadn't thought about the case for safeguarded copy, where they might remove a safeguarded copy session. And while that does not, I want to emphasize this, does not affect the backups. When you do a remove session, we don't touch the hardware, we just remove the CSM brains. So the backups remain on the hardware. But what this could do is if you have a scheduled task creating the backups every hour, 2 hours, whatever, it could interfere with that because that scheduled task will then fail because there's no session to issue it to. Now, hopefully you have alert notifications set up and you'll get alerted right away to the fact that the scheduled task failed, and then you can recreate the session. However, we just didn't want that as a mechanism to try to break safeguarded copy. And so as part of safeguarded copy dual control mode, we now added in remove session to cover that as well. So if you issue a remove session and safeguarded copy dual control mode is on, you'll need a second person to approve that request before the session actually gets deleted. So just a little bit extra protection for you. All right, the next one I want to talk about is a little bit more security for email notifications. So we've always supported email notifications, at least for a long time now. But we didn't have 2 things. We didn't support specifying a port that would be TLS secured. So, for example, port 587 is typically the secured port for email SMTP servers. You could specify a different port, but internally there was none of that TLS support was there, and so I think it would probably fail the connection. And 2, we didn't support the ability to authenticate, so we didn't give you the ability to add a user ID and password into that email server setup in order to get authenticated to that email server. So this request came from a customer. The 2 different requests, one for TLS, one for authentication. And so now that's in the server. If you go to the alert notification for email, at the very top is where you define the email server, and in there you'll see 3 new fields. One it's not a port, it's not a new field, but now he supports the ability to change it to that TLS enabled port, and then 2 new fields for the user and password. You can specify those optionally. We still support it without it, so if you leave those blank and you don't have authentication required on your email server, it will still work, but now you have that extra capability. All right, the next one I want to talk about is another security related item, and this deals with our certificates. So when it comes to certificates, CSM actually has, I'll say, three main interfaces, three main ports kind of that has communication coming and going from the server. One is the GUI, so that's kind of your browser-based interfaces. The other is the CLI, so that's a Java-based connection. And then there's the connection between your active and standby servers. So the active and standby servers have to sync the data over, and those have to use a certificate on there as well. Well, by default today, when you install CSM, we will build self-signed certificates for all of those. The server will become pre-set up with that, etc. And prior to this release, we actually had a button on the GUI for importing a trust store, but that GUI button only covered the GUI browser-based certificate. So you could upload it, modify it so the browsers now have a signed third-party certificate. But to get it for the other ports, so the CLI or active standby support, we had a complex set of instructions down on Knowledge Center that you had to follow to modify property files and the import and copy over the right files to your certificate, all this stuff, just so you could secure those ports with your own third-party signed certificate. So we made that easier this release. We made it so that when you import the certificate from the GUI now, it's going to cover everything. It will redo anything under the covers so that it's all using the new file you imported. You don't have to manage a different certificate for each of those different communication lines. One P12 file covers it all, and you're good to go. I will say, once you do this on the server, you need to make sure you apply that same certificate to any CLI, either local or remote CLIs, because they'll need to have the updated certificate, as well as any standby servers. You'll need to do the same import button on those standby servers to cover that as well. One other thing to note is this will work for the HMC. So if you have CSM running on the HMC, this button will show you can import certificates for that button to cover the case of using the CLI or active and standby support through the HMC, having it secured with your third-party signed certificate. But on the HMC, the browser will be using the HMC's certificate. So if you see that you're not in the browser, you're not using the CSM one you imported, it will be using the HMC DSGUI, same certificate for reasons internal to the HMC. So hopefully this simplifies things dramatically, lets you update the certificate in one call, and here shortly, and hopefully in the next release, we'll be able to do it through, say, a REST API, etc. All right, this one is just real quick, updated look and feel of the GUI. We made some customizations, some modernizations to just make it a little bit fresher, kind of match some of the colors and themes and button sizes of the storage products out there. And so hopefully you get this is a nice change to the GUI, a little bit difference you see, but everything's very minor. All the actions are really the same. Any process you follow, it'll be the same process. It's just a cleaner, fresher look. All right, the next one isn't tied to an idea, but is tied to support for DS8000 10.1. So DS8000 10.1 will be coming out here soon, and in it now supports up to 1,024 safeguarded copy backups per volume. So before, it only allowed for 500 per volume. Now, if you upgrade to 10.1, you can have up to 1,024, not the 10,000, 1,024 backups. And so what we did is on the CSM server, when you upgrade to CSM 6315, we automatically make that our maximum default for a safeguarded copy 1024. So this means even if you're running on older non-10.1 DS8000s, we still use at 1024 value as a maximum, and most of that is really because we didn't want any issues where, say you were running 1024, had up to 1,000 some backups, and for whatever reason CSM starts up or restarts and can't determine and validate that we're at a 10.1 level. We didn't want our default to kick back to 500 and end up deleting backups. So we set it to 1024. I don't think too many customers go to the maximum 500, but for those that do, just be aware that once you upgrade to 6.3.15, if you see the backup fail, it might be because we are trying to create the 501st backup. And in the past, when we had the maximum at 500, when you tried to create the 501st backup, we would expire the oldest so that we could allow the new one. But now, since the maximum is 1024, we would not do the expire of the oldest one. We would try to do the 501st one, and if it's on older hardware, the hardware would say we can't create it. It's only allowed 500. So a little bit of window there where you might hit that issue, but we have some mitigations. So if you do hit this, you have a couple things you can do. One is go into the safeguarded copy sessions and adjust your retention period so that it will expire the backups internally before we hit the 501st backup. I will say that that's probably an ideal thing to do anyway, because what it's going to do is prevent that expiration from happening right before the backup process, which will delay the actual backup. So it's a little bit better to back up and then expire later and then do the next backup, let the backup do its thing instead of expiring right before the backup. So if you can adjust the retention, that's probably ideal. But the other thing you could do is actually set in the property file the maximum backups back to 500. So with that property that you see there, that will set us back to 500. The 501st, we'll see that the max is 500, delete the oldest, allow and then create the new one. So two options there you can get around to mitigate this, but hopefully most of you won't even hit it. Just be aware that our maximum is now set to that 1024 value. All right, so for our FlashSystems customers, I do have an exciting change here. What this is support for what FlashSystems calls create checkpoint on the async policy-based replication sessions. So if you're using CSM with policy-based replication, you'll know that we automatically import it. We see a volume growth with that policy on it. We automatically create the session, even create the snapshot sessions for you, etc. But now you'll see on that async policy-based replication, a new command called create checkpoint. So what is create checkpoint for? Well, it's a feature that they designed on the FlashSystems volume group so that you can, through automation primarily, create that checkpoint, and the Flash system itself will tell you when all the data up to that checkpoint has actually been replicated and hardened on the remote site. So when you do, so you can issue this, CSM will go into what we call waiting for checkpoint state. CSM will query the hardware for when that checkpoint completes, and then we'll go back to a prepared state. And this is a way to validate that all that data may reach the consistent point at the remote site. So one use case for this, if you're asking, a consistent failover. So you could quiesce your application, then create a checkpoint and then wait for that checkpoint to complete, and then do your failover at the remote site. And with that, you know that all the data made it over after you did the quiesce. That can all be automated in CSM. You create a scheduled task, quiesce the application through an external script, create the checkpoint, have it wait for the checkpoint to complete, which is that prepared state, and then do the failover command through the async PBR session as well. So, and you can even reverse the direction of the session. So you can automate that all within that scheduled task, one click of that button, or even have a automation call CSM's API to run that scheduled task, and it'll do all those steps for you under the covers, making sure that you've reversed the replication and everything's running at the remote site. Another use case, maybe you want consistent snapshots at both of the sites, right? You could, in that case, quiet the application, create a local safeguarded snapshot against the async PBR session. That's one of our features from the last release. Have it wait for the checkpoint to complete. Create a remote safeguarded snapshot at the remote site. Now both those snapshots of local and remote have the exact same data, and you know it because of that checkpoint. And then you can call in another external script to resume the application, and you're off and running. So now you have snapshots with the exact same data at both sites, no matter what. And that is a requirement sometimes that I hear from customers. So this is a great tool for automation. We can put it on a scheduled task, or you can call it externally through your own scripting, but a very good mechanism to now take advantage of in CSM. All right, with that said, that's the new stuff for 6.3.15. If you have any additional ideas, please open up the request. I look at these all the time. Look at the votes. Get your friends, family, neighbors to vote for the request if you really feel that strongly about it, and we definitely take those into consideration. So thank you for your time, and hope you enjoy the new features of 6.3.15.